They say if you walk the old lanes of Shanghai, when the rain falls soft and cold, you might catch a glimpse of her. A tall woman in a red silk wedding dress, her veil trailing in puddles like a river of blood. Her face hidden, but you'll feel her eyes, heavy and searching. She waits under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, hands clutching a bouquet of wilted roses. And if you are foolish enough to meet her gaze, you will hear the sound of rain turning to footsteps. Coming closer, welcome to SpiritEcho, and to the story of Hun Shagui, the ghost bride of Shanghai. The year was 1933. Shanghai was a city caught between two worlds, the East that whispered in tea houses and incense smoke, and the West that roared in jazz clubs and neon. Rickshaws rattled through cobblestone alleys while sleek automobiles sped down the Bund. Foreign businessmen clinked glasses of whiskey as opera singers performed arias in candlelit courtyards. The city was alive with contradictions, a place where ancient shrines stood in the shadow of steel towers, and tucked away in one of its narrow shikumen lanes, where laundry hung from bamboo poles and neighbors gossiped over steaming bowls of noodles, lived a young seamstress named Lianhua, her name meaning lotus blossom. Her shop was small, its windows filled with bolts of silk, scarlet, ivory, and jade. Her hands coaxed beauty from cloth, every stitch like poetry written in thread. Neighbors often paused just to watch her work, admiring her quiet concentration and the way she seemed to breathe life into garments. But Lianhua's beauty was not the kind sold cheaply. She turned down advances with a polite bow, her gaze always steady, always distant. For she dreamed of something more, a love that was both fierce and kind. A man who would see her not as a prize, but as a partner worth cherishing. A love strong enough to lift her from the coal dust of alleyways to a world filled with music, light, and promise. And soon, that dream would arrive at her door. He came into her shop on a rainy afternoon. The bell above the door chimed, and the scent of wet pavement drifted in with him. Zhao Wen, son of a wealthy banker, stood in the doorway, rain sliding down the ivory silk of his suit. His tie, the color of midnight, clung damply to his chest. He claimed he needed a custom qipao for his sister's wedding, but his eyes lingered too long on her face. When he smiled, it was the smile of someone who had never gone hungry. When he spoke, his words carried the polish of schools abroad, yet softened when he said her name, Lianhua. Days later, he returned, and again, each time with another excuse. A new order, a forgotten scarf, a gift of candied plums nestled in a lacquered box. The neighbors began to whisper. The seamstress with her simple shop, and the banker's son with shoes that never touched mud. But Lianhua only lowered her lashes and said nothing. Soon, she was walking beside him under paper umbrellas, her laughter spilling into the rain-slicked streets, mingling with the music of distant gramophones and the clatter of rickshaw wheels. He spoke of marriage, of a grand ceremony in the Gothic cathedral that towered over the Bund, its bells ringing across the Huangpu River. He promised her a future where she would never bend her back for coins again, where her hands would stitch gowns only for herself, not for strangers who never learned her name. And though a shadow of doubt brushed her heart, she let herself believe. For the first time, Lianhua allowed herself to dream, not of silk or thread, but of love. The morning of the wedding arrived, wrapped in fog so thick it blurred the Shanghai skyline, as if heaven itself refused to bear witness. Inside the cathedral, candles flickered in their tall brass holders, their flames bending in the draught like nervous hearts. Lianhua's hair was pinned with gold phoenix combs, symbols of fidelity and rebirth. Her dress was a cascade of crimson silk, embroidered with white cranes soaring for longevity and luck. But the groom never arrived. At first, guests shifted politely, whispering reassurances. The fog must have delayed his carriage. The streets were always dangerous, but whispers soon soured into smoke. That Zhao Wen's carriage had overturned on the Bund, horses tangled in the reins. That he had been ambushed by debtors. And darker still, that he had been seen boarding a ship under cover of night, not alone, but with a merchant's daughter, her dowry glittering brighter than any vow of love. Hours dragged by. The musicians left one by one. The incense turned to ash. And still she waited, hands clenched around the bouquet until petals bruised in her grip. When the last candles guttered out, Lianhua stood. Her silk hem whispered across the cathedral floor as she stepped into the empty streets, still veiled, still radiant, still searching. Through alleyways and along the wet cobblestones she wandered, the red of her wedding dress trailing like spilled blood in the mist. Neighbors swore they saw her, a bride with hollow eyes, walking past shuttered tea houses, pausing at every corner as though the shadows might answer her. By dawn, they found her body drifting in Suzhou Creek, face pale against the water, bouquet still pressed to her chest. The silk had tangled like weeds around her limbs, as though the river itself refused to let her go. After her burial, the alley grew colder. The laundry lines that once swayed with children's laughter now hung heavy, their cloth damp as if the fog itself wept. Men returning late from the glittering dance halls of the Bund spoke of her. They swore she was there, standing at the mouth of the lane, her silhouette carved from mist and moonlight. The red of her wedding dress burned like a wound in the night. Her veil fluttered softly, though no wind stirred. And then came her voice, thin, trembling like rain on stone. "Have you seen my groom?" Those who turned, those who pitied her, those who answered, never made it home. Days later, the river returned them. Their bodies floated to the surface with faces drained of color, their hands stiff as if reaching for someone unseen. Their lungs, swollen with water, though not a single soul had seen them fall in. Neighbors whispered that Lianhua, the forsaken bride, was searching still. Not for vengeance, but for a promise broken, a love stolen. And in her grief, she pulled others into the waters with her, so they too might know what it was to wait forever. Lianhua's wedding dress was never found. Some whispered it sank with her body into the black waters of Suzhou Creek. But the tailors of Shanghai told a different story. They claimed the dress still existed, passing quietly from one second-hand shop to another, always returned by trembling hands. They said if a woman dared to put it on, she would see herself in the mirror, but never alone. Behind her reflection stood a second figure in red, her veil like smoke, her lips curved in a smile that carried no warmth. From that night on, the wearer would dream of rain. Endless rain, pounding rooftops, flooding streets, drumming on a coffin lid. And then, one evening, she would wake to find herself standing at the edge of the riverbank, the moon above, the water lapping at her feet. The dress would cling to her skin, silk growing heavier and heavier, dragging her step by step into the dark current. And when the river swallowed her whole, the dress would vanish once more, waiting to be sold again. On certain rainy nights, when thunder rattles the Bund and the streets glisten like black glass, jazz music can be heard drifting through the old French concession. But the clubs closed long ago. The ballrooms are abandoned. Windows boarded, doors chained. Still, if you follow the music, it will lead you to an empty hall, its chandeliers swaying as though stirred by breath unseen. And there, in the center of the polished floor, she waits. A lone figure in crimson silk, her hem whispering against the tiles as she sways to a tune no band plays. Her veil trembles, though there is no wind. If you dare step forward, if you dare take her hand, she will lean close, her lips almost brushing your ear, and she will whisper a single question. Have you seen my groom? If you answer, you will never leave that ballroom. They say the walls will echo with laughter and music, but no one will ever hear you again. This was the story of Hunsha Gui, the wedding dress ghost of Shanghai, a woman who traded her heart for promises and was left with only rain and eternity. If you ever see her under a street lamp, turn away, for she is still waiting for her wedding day, and she does not care if you are the right groom or not. Thank you to our new subscribers and to every brave soul who listens to these stories in the dark. Your support keeps these echoes alive.